dogs being loud right now.
Well, Broncos country, man, we are just over 24 hours past the Broncos and Bills thrashing a terrible playoff game. But the Broncos are into the offseason, and I'm super excited to be joined, obviously, by David and Jeremy, my two good friends here to talk about, recap the game a little bit and talk about what the future of this Broncos team holds as we enter the offseason. So how you guys doing today, Jeremy and David? How you guys doing, man?
Doing well.
Doing great. I'm glad we're able to connect, man. So
Yeah,
I listened to your video earlier today on my drive to the chiropractor, and I
you?
loved how you were talking about the off-season plan. So I'm looking forward to this.
No, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it, and it's weird because like I was definitely bummed by the game in a way, but I feel like I prepped myself so much for us to just. I felt like we weren't going to win the Super Bowl, and I just kept thinking about, all right, what's going to happen? Like, what are we going to be like next year? So it's exciting. So I don't want to take away from the playoff exit, but definitely looking forward to the offseason overall.
Yeah, and speaking of getting your back worked on at the chiropractor, the news and the legend of Bo Nix continues, breaking 3 transverse process bones in his back and then still carrying the team on it for the rest of the year to get us into the playoffs. Unbelievable. Yeah. That is just, and he almost didn't want to say it like in the thing. He's just like, yeah, we all get nicked up and all this stuff. And then his nicked up, like, example is 3 broken bones in his back. You're just like, dude, that's
I know
crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's not really surprising, just based off everything that we've seen. I mean, just the toughness, the grittiness, you kind of saw it all. So I obviously couldn't be happier with the season. But I mean, I guess quickly, David, I'll start with you with your thoughts just of of the game. I'm sorry, I missed you guys' live stream yesterday, so I don't want you to repeat yourselves too much. But what were your thoughts on the game overall? Just specific to the playoff game yesterday.
Yeah, proud of how Bo Nix played, and we need a running game, man. We need a running game, and we need some tight ends. And it's amazing that we were able to achieve what we were able to achieve, and Bo Nix statistically was able to achieve what he was able to achieve without having a running game and without having tight ends. We've talked a lot about how the Russell Wilson offense out here, just because you knew he couldn't throw to certain parts of the field, it made life for defenses pretty easy in terms of how you're going to defend this team. Mm-hmm. The fact that we were able to put up 25 points a game in the regular season when it was really just Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, and Marvin Mims throughout the season is it's remarkable. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how George Payton, Sean Payton, put a real cast around him so we can have an offense that isn't so one-dimensional. But I think you can't be one-dimensional in the playoffs. Like you just can't. And we got beat by a team that has been forged over years. They are ready for this moment.
Yeah, very much so. Jeremy, how about yourself, man?
Yeah, you're super disappointed, like, watching the game, and I think the takeaway for some people and probably the national media is just like, oh, the Broncos got blown out and see, it should have been the Bengals and all that stuff. But like that game was much, much closer than the final score. Watching Tim Jenkins break down yesterday, I mean, there was some little tiny things that happened. I mean, obviously the drops, missing that field goal, like totally killed our momentum going into half. I honestly think it's a different game if we just make that field goal. But it just felt like we just weren't sharp enough. We just weren't quite ready. And that's what experience, gets you, is it gets you ready mentally and for the moment. And I just felt like we were just, for all the stuff that happened this season and all the good things, and as far as we've come, we still are not to where we need to get. And it showed up in the playoffs just like it has shown up in a lot of games this year. The defense, obviously, there was some stuff there that we hadn't seen, just like getting dominated on the defensive line and that kind of stuff, running the ball. But as far as like the offense being able to hang, like we were really, really close. and there were some big throws and big plays in that game. And I guess my biggest takeaway was that the quarterback that you're kind of like the whole season is based upon, like, do we have a quarterback? How good is he going to be? Is he the future guy? He's the one guy that didn't feel like it was too big for him. And he really showed up in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to be the most exciting thing is give him a full off season, give Franklin and Vele and Mims and, even just the chemistry with the whole like offense, full off season with him. And we're just going to be that much further along. I'm so thankful that we got the playoff experience because I think that's so invaluable. Who cares about a couple of draft picks, just draft slots, just to be able to make the playoffs? And just it feels like a totally different thing making the playoffs, even if you're one and done. So really positive, and I'm just proud that our quarterback has shown what he's shown, and he's a gamer, and then it comes out with the injury thing, and you just go, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, and it really does. It's funny because the scoreboard showed 31-7, and obviously I felt like it was like that score was true to itself given the second half. You kind of just felt like somebody took a needle, popped the balloon, and it just completely took it off of this team. But you're absolutely right, man. In the first half, it was crazy. Like one drop, a really key drop by Cortland, ends up killing a drive. We end up getting the fake punt to be able to get it going again. But then we can't, we miss the protection. Von Miller comes, wide open, and then it goes down. And then, so, if those kinds of things don't happen, like if you get, if Cortland Sutton catches that ball, who knows what the momentum is going to get going, right? You can kind of get into a rhythm because you've seen it with this team. You're either going 3 and out or you're having 18 play drives. I feel like it's rarely like in between, right? And then, same thing later on. It might have been even the second drive of the second half, or maybe the first drive of the second half. You kind of feel like, okay, you're getting the run game going, you're in a third and manageable, and then Troy Franklin has that terrible drop, and it just ends the drive. It's like, what happens if you get into a groove? And you never know. You never know. But those tiny little plays, make a huge difference. But I mean, we had the ball offensively equivalent to one quarter, basically 18 minutes to 41 in the time of possession. You are going to lose every game against any opponent, especially a formidable opponent like the Buffalo Bills. So obviously very frustrating, but I think, man, it really goes to show, okay, now we know the standard, now we know where we need to go to, but also it really paints a clear picture of where do we need to improve. And so I think it, leading into the offseason, it's going to be, really fun to see what these guys can do. It looks like, I guess we got the 20th overall pick in the draft. So that's exciting, but was that, no, I read reports originally that it was 19th, and then the Broncos Twitter handle said it was the 20th. So,
okay. All the mock draft sites still have Denver at 19. That's a bummer.
Yeah, and I think it was because maybe when the Bucks lost, they would technically be ahead of us because they have the same record, but we had the head-to-head. I'm not sure exactly how they do. I know the Chargers would be behind us, so I think that's that was at least per their Twitter. So unless they screw that up, that'd be wild. But I guess, looking into the offseason, and Jeremy, I'll start with you. Is there anything, I guess, from, maybe starting with our free agents, the current list of free agents that we have, and I can pull them up if you want to check it out.
Yeah.
But is there anybody on there that you're like, I would really like to, to have them get retained?
Yeah. I mean, pull them up. I don't know. They're probably not considering Benito a free agent. He's not a free agent yet, but, I mean, Cortland, I feel, is like a pretty pivotal piece right now. It would be crazy to start a whole fresh new.
Yeah, this is more. Yep.
Oh,
so
okay,
I just made this for earlier. This is more the cut candidates, so it's going to be more here on the Bronco free agency. Yeah, I made this on a different video.
Yeah. The ones that like stick out to me are DJ Jones. He played really well. He's kind of one of those guys that doesn't get a lot of the credit, but does have to do a lot of the dirty work. So I wouldn't mind him staying, especially if you don't have to pay him double figure millions. I think he's making 10 right now. If you could get that number to like 7 or something, like I would be happy with him staying for sure.
Yeah.
I don't like our linebackers at all. I think that showed up in the last month of the season. I think we hid them really well, but man, we didn't hide them yesterday. So I think that's a big upgrade. Um, Someone like Little Jordan is probably coming back just because he's like Sean's boy.
Yeah.
It just is. I mean, that's fine. It's like if he's I'm fine with him being wide receiver 5 or something. He blocks his butt off. I'll give him that, and that's big. And if he's the right kind of guy as your wide receiver 5 or 6 in the room, fine. Traymon is like really important guy for our special teams. I wouldn't hate for our special teams to take a step back, but I guess those are the main ones.
It's kind of it's a little bit of an underwhelming list, which
Well,
I
we've
think is
taken
a
care
good
of the
thing.
guys. Yeah, we've
Yeah, which
taken
I
care
think is
of
a good thing
the
because we
big
took
ones.
care of a lot of the other guys. But David, I'm curious what your thoughts are. If there's anybody that kind of stands out, or maybe I missed on this list.
Yeah. Right now, Cortland, he's got a big cap number. So I know you don't have this in your document, but for 2025, his cap number is 21.7 million. The cash that he's going to make is a lot less. That's why I feel like you're going to see him sign some sort of manageable extension. I think that is going to happen.
I would agree.
For sure.
And yeah, that should absolutely happen. In terms of Will Jordan Humphrey, yeah, I think you try and just bring him back on like a vet minimum, not guaranteed. See if he can make the roster. Hopefully, he's just a guy that sticks on the practice squad next year, and hopefully, we have some tight ends that can block. In terms of where we go with inside linebacker, I would want to bring back one of like. I think ideally it would be nice to bring back like Alex Singleton at like a significant pay cut along with Cody Barton. I just don't know if that's going to be realistic. And maybe we do have a inside linebacker that we can actually pay that will be a significant upgrade for us. But I would like to see one of those guys back. Sternad can be brought back at probably a vet minimum if we want to keep him. Riley Dixon, sure. I wouldn't mind upgrading there. DJ Jones, I think he's a must re-sign, even if it's on like a 1 or 2 year deal or a 2-year deal that's structured as like essentially a 1-year deal like Josh Reynolds. Because right now, when you look at free agent, there's no nose tackles available. And the guys that were available, DJ Jones was better than every single one of them, even playing out of position. So I think that's definitely a position that we need to address in the draft long term, but you got to bring him back. And Jared Stidham, Javonte Williams, Michael Burton. I think we saw Nate Atkins, take a nice step this year. I'd like to see all those guys move on. And Zach Wilson, I'd be really interested in keeping him around, but it's got to be the right number. I'm not okay signing him to like a $10 million deal just to back up Bo Nix. Like at the end of the day, I probably don't want to spend any more than $5 million on backup quarterback this year. That's how I feel about it. So long-winded, but the other guys, in terms of cap savings for cut candidates, I wouldn't mind cutting Adam Troutman, but I think you definitely want to bring back JFM, Malcolm Roche, and PJ Locke's a tough one. If you could sign somebody like Justin Reed from the Chiefs, that would be awesome. And maybe the $4 million that you save cutting PJ Locke can go towards him. But I think it might be interesting if we bring him back and then we're also drafting a guy in like the 3rd round, like we did Justin Simmons, and then he's ready to take over in another year.
Yeah, I think we're all really on the same page. The way that I structured this is anybody that's red, I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. Anybody that's green, I would like to see back. And then the yellows, I'm kind of 50-50 on. So I think kind of across the board, we're on the same page. And then, when you look at guys that could potentially be cut candidates, I think JFM, Cortland, and Malcolm Roach are guys that I would love to see not just stay, but be extended. Everyone else, I think, is, you can find replacements or you can have a plan for it. So, just really interesting stuff there. But it's nice. I think it's a great kudos to the front office for really taking care of the pertinent guys, the most important guys. Jonathan Cooper, the Quinn Miners, PS2. Obviously all in advance, all during the season. Garrett Bowles, right? So now it's like you can fully focus on the priority positions and exactly how to build it and what you want to bring in. So that brings me into my next question, David. I'll start with you. Of like, if you were to rank maybe top 3 or top 5, like biggest needs positionally, how would you rank them?
I would probably go right now running back. This year, the biggest learning, I think I was talking with Jeremy about this yesterday, is that I no longer believe running backs are a dime a dozen after this year, man. Like, they're just not. And we've tried it, and it's just not working. So running back is huge. We need a running game that is at least league average. Can we get there? And it's embarrassing with the line that we have that we didn't have one 100-yard rusher throughout this whole season. And our highest rusher on the year was Bo Nix, right? Like, that's embarrassing. So running back has to be priority number 1. The problem is that you can't fill that realistically through free agency. It's going to have to be through the draft, I think. And I'm very on the fence on still, even though I don't believe running backs are dime a dozen anymore. I'd still rather not spend a first-round draft pick on a running back. And as intriguing as Ashton Jeanty is, I think there are plenty of other options throughout this draft. Second need, close to running back, has to be tight end. Self-explanatory. It's just not even a real part of our offense at this point. These guys don't even have to be covered by a defensive coordinator or like stressed about when it comes to game planning at all. And after that, then it becomes a toss-up between inside linebacker and safety. To me, it just seems like most teams and most fans are not thrilled with their current inside linebacker tandem. And I don't think what we have going on is really much different than what other teams have going on outside of maybe a select few. But PJ Light kind of got exposed over this past like 5-6 weeks or so. And yeah, that was a big issue, I feel like, in our passing game. And I think that he's probably the ideal third safety, which is what he played throughout most of his career here so far.
Yeah.
So I think you can kind of interchange inside linebacker and safety. Yeah, running back, tight end, safety, inside linebacker. That's what I'd put.
I love it. I love it. Jeremy, how about yourself, man?
Yeah, nailed it. The good news about that is the premium positions in a draft are never running back, tight end, and inside linebacker. So that means you can really upgrade that position. I wouldn't even be shocked if we trade back, try to get more in second round picks, and then load up in those positions, just because you don't, unless a Jeanty falls or somebody who you are absolutely in love with, or a Tyler Warren or somebody that you love is there. Why, you don't want to reach for a tight end. You don't want to reach for a running back. Step back, accumulate more, draft picks, and collect people in the second round and third rounds. That would be, I could definitely see that happening. I think safety, I think you're absolutely right about how everybody doesn't like their linebackers for the most part, because when they would do those tier lists on X or whatever, and not that those people are accurate, but I was just looking through the names, and it was I don't know who any of these people are for the most part. It's just a position that has just kind of gone away for, with so much dime and nickel. So it's one of those things where it's when we were looking for a right tackle forever, and they're why don't they just get a right tackle? And it's well, there's 2 or 3 that are available maybe. Yeah. So that's one person. Mike McGlinchey, obviously, like, thank God we have him now, because I just felt like he really played a lot better this year. We don't have to worry about that. But the premium positions are your wide receivers, which this isn't a good wide receiver draft. Cornerbacks, which we're pretty set, knock on wood, on corners. I wouldn't mind always drafting one, just
Yeah.
We will. We definitely will. With George Payton as the GM, he'll always draft a corner for sure.
He loves it. But I mean, he's good at it so far. He's good at it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where would this team have been without Riley Moss? Like, coming, I told David this yesterday. Besides Bo Nix, Riley Moss is the biggest revelation of the season, because when he was out and we had to like play zone more, we just looked like a totally different team. So yeah, I think we can really upgrade those positions, and that's exciting. And we can probably get top class guys. And this is a deep class for running backs, tight ends. I don't know about linebacker, but for running backs, tight ends, there's a lot of good options. I wouldn't mind. Yeah. We were joking around. I wouldn't mind double dipping on either of those positions or both, just because
100%.
I just don't trust our running backs. Is like, just rewatching the highlights of that game and looking at that, like, how much could we take off of Bo's play if we just had a running game? We already have the line for it. So you just need a dynamic guy in there. And man, those 2nd and 8s and 3rd and 7s turn into 2nd and 3s and 2nd and 2s and 3rd and 1s, and man, I just, that feels like it's the biggest position of need for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I think the top 3, I mean, you really opened up my eyes to safety. I was really thinking about it before, because I was like, you kind of think there's so many other glaring holes, but safety is definitely one I feel like we can upgrade. But I think, yeah, I mean, running back, what I had put on Twitter before, I think I put in order was, I just want to make sure I got it. I was definitely running back, tight end, and inside linebacker. And then at 4, I put slot receiver. And maybe
okay, I was going to ask about that, because we didn't mention wide receiver, which we would have mentioned 3 months ago as like being a top need. So explain more of that, Mark.
Yeah, I put slot receiver at 4, and then I put outside receiver at 5, because I feel like, I really want to differentiate the two, because I still believe we can add to the wide receiver room. I think we should, and I'm almost certain that we will. But a slot receiver is such a unique position, especially if you don't have a good tight end. You can offset a lot of that by having a really good slot receiver, somebody that you could just, on 3rd and 6, he's going to get open for 7, right? We haven't had that in a long time, since basically Wes Welker, Brandon Stokely days. I feel like a true slot. And yeah, I think I just think it's such an important and slept on position. And I know they move Ladd McConkey like everywhere, but I feel like when you watch that guy on safeties and on linebackers, he's just getting open all day. It's like, man, that would be such a great safety blanket for Bo Nix. And even though I think we have our wide receiver room definitely needs work, and we have a lot of guys that are really intriguing from a developmental standpoint, like what Vele can do and what Franklin can do next year, and obviously where Mims can go. But none of them, I think, project to be a true slot receiver. So that's why I feel like it's a really, really big need for this team. And just like with everything else, I mean, these guys don't just fall off trees, right? You don't just find them in free agency. But I think in the draft we have a really good chance of getting one. And then outside receiver. I mean, I'm going to be really, really intrigued to see what we end up doing, because even though I think Courtland Sutton had a great year, I think we should definitely give him an extension. Is he a true number 1? Does Sean Payton and George Payton view him as a true number 1? And if not, do you address that in the draft? Do you overpay in free agency? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So, yeah, love to know what you guys think about that overall.
I'm curious because, again, we mentioned earlier, Courtland Sutton's cap hit $21.7 million. Again, the cash due, I think, is like 15 or whatever. Would you let him go if T. Higgins hits free agency, like unrestricted free agency. I just happen to think that he's going to be franchised, and the Bengals are going to try and keep Joe Burrow happy, even though that's going to be terrible for their overall team construction. But if he does hit unrestricted free agency, is that something that you guys would do?
Jeremy, go ahead. I'm just pulling up the numbers here. So
that's real risky to me. He torched us, so it's like there's an obvious like instant memory of him being like, wow, this guy is really good, crazy. But man, I just feel like Cortland is the right type of guy leading that room. And to me, that's what's risky about it. Cortland, I feel like we don't give Cortland enough credit because he doesn't do it in the same way as a lot of other wide receiver ones.
He's not DT.
Right.
He filled in for DT, right?
Right. He's not like that dynamic yak guy. And I feel like that's the part where we're like, oh, we need that. But it's like if you had your second and third guy be that, you wouldn't even think about it. So I just think he's really, besides that one drop yesterday, where would we be this season without Cortland Sutton? We would be in big freaking trouble. I mean, we win 7 games maybe.
Yeah.
Optimistically. I mean, he was just so clutch. And, you know, there was a play yesterday where Bo got pressure off the right side really quickly. And instead of what he should have done is probably just check it down to Mims, and then hopefully Mims can get the first down. He just throws a 50-50 ball to Cortland, which doesn't work, but it just goes to show like that's the safety blanket of all safety blankets. And it's like, that would be really risky to me to like move on from him. And I think he's, you know, he's been here for so long, and like him sticking through everything when he could have like been the diva and demanded to go elsewhere and then didn't, says a lot for me. So I really don't want to, I just feel like he would be a great 1A if you don't want to call him wide receiver 1, you know?
Yeah.
As far as slot receiver goes, I mean, if you're going in the draft and getting somebody who can like be that dynamic Lad McConkey type of guy, unfortunately his size isn't big, but man, it would be instant chemistry. You got Tez Johnson sitting right there, man. And
I could say,
if you go back and watch the highlights, which I watched every single one of them when Bo was at Oregon, those guys were in the same brain, you know, and they're, as much as we were frustrated with Troy Franklin not maybe having the chemistry that we thought he'd have, I don't think that would be that way with Tez at all. And he's the right type of person and guy that you want in your locker room as well. As a receiver, that's kind of rare, and I feel like Vele isn't the right type of guy. Mims isn't like a super loud guy. Like, that would be one that I would, and he's not supposed to be a top 100 pick by a lot of people. So if you could get him in the 4th or 5th, man, I don't know if I'd wait that long, but just I think he would be a really good option.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I always have my reservations of like drafting a player's best friend, or in this case his adopted brother. Even though I feel like it'd be such a cool story, and I don't think it'd be any kind of a distraction. It just always kind of makes me a little bit weary. But I haven't done enough like looking into the draft, that deeply on Tez Johnson. I know he's really undersized, but I mean, I would love it. And I think that I think for me, when it comes to the Cortland situation, like if it was Cortland or Higgins, I feel like I would be totally on board bringing Higgins if we also extended Cortland. Like, I don't want to do it like in exchange for, just because I think a lot of things Jeremy had said, like the locker room loves him. Bo's obviously got a lot of trust. Why kind of, why try to fix something, I guess, if it ain't broken right there, but adding to it to where he can be in a role where he's not constantly seeing double teams, where he's able to get freed up a little bit and have somebody like Higgins on the outside. It's going to be a lot of money, accounted for your wide receiver room, but we're in the position where we can afford to do that now, given that we're not paying a big contract to our quarterback. So I think it'd be, super intriguing there. And then David here says, who would be your dream wide receiver, vet, or rookie tight end if you could get? I mean, I think for me, rookie rookie tight end is Tyler Warren for sure. That's my
Yeah.
pinned tweet on my Twitter. I think he just screams. Not only do I feel like he's going to be an amazing pro, but he screams Sean Payton guy. But my dream wide receiver in terms of like a veteran, I don't know if I have I do love the idea of T. Higgins, but I also have a lot of reservations, right? And it's not just about what he's going to get paid, but it's also his injury history. So I'm curious what you guys were to think.
Yeah, I mentioned in the comments here, Darius Slayton, somebody that I talked in a video about today. We talked about him as a possible trade target, but again, like there's not like a ton of wide receivers in this free agency class that I feel like are worth spending big money. And you bring up the right question, like Jeremy and Mark, on if you're going to get 75% of T. Higgins production for literally half the cost of T. Higgins, like it just, to me, it just doesn't make sense to move off of court for T. Higgins. Maybe we go big time at wide receiver and bring him in. I'm just not a huge fan of paying multiple wide receivers like fairly decent amount of change. But I think Darius Slayton's a guy that we could pay under $10 million, and maybe even Brandon Cooks as well. I know that he's a little bit older. Maybe he wants to go to a contender, but he has played for Sean Payton before in the past in New Orleans. Sean Payton did trade him, if I remember correctly, but I think that, again, we've seen enough from our young wide receivers that I feel good enough about it, seeing them come back for another year. But somebody like Tez Johnson, I'd be interested in, maybe on day 3, a guy that I brought up that I think could eventually be that replacement for Cortland Sutton, similar type of role as Will Shepherd from CU. I think he's going to get drafted at some point on day 3. So those are some guys. But Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin, I love. There's I'm not really big on Jason Taylor's kid, Mason Taylor. Like I just don't see.
It's Jason Taylor's kid.
Yeah,
I was just looking. Yeah. I was just looking into him the other day. That's interesting.
Yeah, and we don't need his auntie coming into the clubhouse. I was about to just say so. Yeah, we don't need any of that. But the guy from Syracuse. Terrence Ferguson. Jeremy, you brought this up. We can totally double dip on some of these positions in the draft if we choose to, but that might cost us not drafting a receiver.
Yeah, Terrence Ferguson.
It's interesting that
you can
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna say if Terrence Ferguson is your second tight end and you have a better one than Terrence Ferguson, you got a really good tight end room because that dude will do everything the right way and he's the right kind of guy as well. So I would love to have double dip and having a dynamic, just like yak guy. And then getting somebody like Terrence Ferguson. The other name on wide receiver that I had heard like whispers about is Chris Godwin. Now there's a guy that I don't know how much he's going to want, but that's a guy who just does all the small things the right way and is very clutch. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really looking forward to diving into these, the rookie class more. I really started with the tight ends initially, but haven't really gotten super into it because I was like, why am I looking now? I want to wait until the season's over, but I can't wait to do some homework on it. But it's an interesting point that LTB brought up here. He said, now if Devontae Adams gets released, eye emoji. I am not a fan of necessarily bringing in Devontae Adams. I love Devontae Adams. I don't think he's necessarily the right fit for this team and his age and all that, but his teammate that he plays for. There was rumblings about Garrett Wilson maybe getting a trade. Now, I'll preface by saying this: I don't think he ultimately gets traded. But if he is rumored to be on the trade block, would you be interested in going after him? And if so, what would you give up for him?
I'd give up 2 seconds for him.
2 seconds?
Yeah, I ain't giving up a first-round pick for a guy that I need to pay big-time money to. I know the Eagles did that with A.J. Brown, but I just ain't about it. We got too many holes.
David's thinking about that peanut butter skin. You guys know what I'm talking about, Joy Taylor. That's hilarious. I just think his age is the really big factor for him. Like this is a young team building. And I said this yesterday, Mark, but I just feel like with Mims, Vele, and Franklin all coming into like their second and third year, like, and having a full offseason with Bo and all those things, I would be so surprised if they don't make a pretty big jump going into that second year. And maybe one of them does and one of them doesn't, or maybe two of them, whatever. But they got a lot of experience this season, which was really beneficial for them. So I don't want to just be like, oh, let's get like a new draft one, sign one, and then just forget about these guys. I could see Vele turning into a really like. I could see our wide receiver if we just add one more like talented piece. I think our wide receiver room next year could be a much further along than it was this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson for me is super intriguing because of the fact. I mean, he is still 24. I think he's unbelievably talented. I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL for sure, especially when he's locked in. I don't know what kind of like if there's attitude problems or whatever. Maybe I mean, who would want to really play for the Jets the way that they were last year? But you get somebody like him. It's interesting because you did bring it up, David, about having to sign him to a big contract. But he is, I mean, he's still under contract for next season in his final year, and you can technically still pick up his fifth year option in 2026. So you wouldn't necessarily have to make that commitment immediately off the bat. And so,
do you think the Jets would take a 26 first?
I don't think so, man. I think I realistically think that the Jets asking price is probably going to be like 2 1s or 1 and a 2.
Oh, yeah,
And crazily enough, I feel like some team might actually do it. I don't know if it'll be the Broncos, but I don't know, man, because sometimes teams be doing crazy stuff. I mean, what did Devontae Adams get traded for from the not this last season, from the Raiders, but like when he went to the Raiders?
It was a second round pick and some other like day 3 picks or something.
Oh, it was. So it wasn't a 1?
I don't think so.
I think it's because that contract.
So yeah, I mean, so maybe not, but I'd be really interested if somebody's like, you just flat out give the 20th pick this year for Garrett Wilson. I would at least have to entertain it, but I don't know.
Do you think Devontae would ever want to come here? I mean, I feel like he's kind of stupid because he requested a trade from the Raiders to just go play for the Jets. So I really question his decision making, but he can still play, man.
He can.
Players never underestimate the power of the Jets ruining you. Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. I mean, how many quarterbacks and how many players have gone to the Jets and thinking, "Oh, we'll turn it around"? The only person I've ever seen do it is Brett Favre. That's the only person I've ever seen go to the Jets and be successful.
And legitimately be good. Yeah. Devontae Adams is intriguing. I mean, I love the dude. He's always been one of my favorite players, but I just feel like you're gonna it would be a really strange scenario because it's like I don't think Devontae Adams is a true wide receiver 1 anymore. If we don't think Sutton's a true wide receiver 1 anymore either, it's like, do we just have kind of 2 2s and go with like the Packers approach? But he could also be great for the young guys too. Okay.
Well, what about if that means like, because I just feel like if we have running backs and tight ends that are actually like good, our wide receivers are gonna just look so much better. So yeah, like with tight end, I feel like we can sign some of these guys. I mean, like Zach Ertz is an unrestricted free agent. Mike Gesicki, I worry about him a little bit, but I'd be a big fan of him because of big slot, a guy that's been very productive. But is he going to get the Greg Dulcich treatment because he's not always the best blocker? Like that does worry me. Jawan Johnson from New Orleans is going to be available at a decent rate, but I do wonder if like that's kind of where we decide to spend a little bit more and then we go bargain at veteran wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, here's a little bit of a free agency list so we can run through it and see if there's anything intriguing, but you were just talking about tight ends. I mean, anybody on this list here kind of stand out to you on the
these guys are better than anybody on our current team.
Yeah.
So we could sign like
that's not saying much, but is it like how much of a difference would it make, right? But I mean, I see what you mean, especially the top 3. I feel like are really intriguing.
I was a big Tommy Tremble guy, like when he was coming out, like, and Mo Alley Cox. Like, I still believe Mo Alley Cox can be a good tight end.
he's shown legitimate flashes at times too. I know if I'm remembering right, I think he got a lot of injuries too, and you know, randomly over the last couple of seasons. But I remember him showing a lot. I feel like, you know, even Tommy Tremble was really intriguing because he kind of fits the mold of like what Peyton likes in a second tight end. Like I feel like from what I've seen, he's a really, really good blocker, like next level type of run blocking tight end that also has, you know, some ability to you know, catch the ball. But I mean, I thought Gesicki got himself a lot of money. I think Juwan Johnson, somebody we talked about during the trade deadline, it makes a ton of sense. So I mean, just like you said,
Conklin just wasn't even targeted with the Jets, man.
Yeah,
like Aaron Rodgers just wasn't even thrown to him.
Yeah, he's showing a lot too. And I like any one of these free agents, even maybe a couple of them, you know, teamed up with, you know, a rookie, somebody like a, you know, whether it's a Colson Loveland or you know, obviously Tyler Warren, or what's it, Hunter Gelm, the guy from or Gunnar Helm, Hunter Gelm. Is it
Gunnar Helm from Texas?
Yeah, he played here. He's a local kid. I think he played here at Cherry Creek. You know, any one of those kind of intriguing young players, I feel like teaming them up would be good. I would be fine with that room. But tight end is actually, from a free agency standpoint, like not as bad as it has been in other years. But maybe we're just so desperate we're trying to sell ourselves.
All these names look good. Too. Wouldn't that be hilarious if we bring back Noah Fant? I wanted us to go after him last year, but then he signed for like $10 million. I was like, what?
I know, and apparently he's on the cut candidates list. He's green. I guess I read some reports that like it's a pretty likely that they might actually move on from him. So I mean, who knows with that reunion? And then Evan Ingram, man, is somebody too that, like, good Lord, if he's healthy, he had a 100-catch season, I think, just last year.
Yeah, so he was like their best target last year for the Jags.
Yeah, he's intriguing. And then there's the, you know, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts. I don't think Mark Andrews will get traded. It's definitely not anymore, but Kyle Pitts might. And I'm kind of in the camp of like, maybe Kyle Pitts just isn't really good and it's all hype, but shit, I'd be really
Jeremy was saying that the other day.
Yeah. I'd be really you know, intrigued by Pitts. So
no, I'm out on Pitts. You know why? Because if Michael Penix can't find Kyle Pitts on the field, I'm out. That guy, like, has had every opportunity to be good. I don't like his. He runs half speed. Like, those are the people that, like, as a white, like, average athlete person in my life, I am like, how do you have this ability and then don't go all out? Like, that's the thing that's so hard, because you're just like, man, if I had your body and skills, like, oh my gosh. But I just can't get on board with people that, like, have everything to be successful and then just mentally, or they just are like, they don't go full out. I just don't like it. So
the reason I think I'm really intrigued with Pitts is because, yes, I mean, you know, he had better quarterback situation than he has in his prior years, but he's never really had a coordinator that I feel like loves tight ends much. But not necessarily to make a full excuse, but I feel like if there is anybody that can get the most out of players and what he's proven to be able to do, and like maybe he gets just reinvigorated, and you know, we build an offense around him, because that's one thing Sean Payton's proven he can do, is he can build an offense around somebody like Kyle Pitts. I mean, look at what Jimmy Graham did. You know, maybe you get the best out of him, but yeah, it would have to be a very, very low risk trade offer, you know, a trade for me to be open to doing it. But I mean, who knows? You look at Evan Ingram, right? Evan Ingram, when he was drafted by the Giants. He was, you know, he didn't live up to expectations at all. He was pretty bad. And then he kind of got a really good opportunity when he was in Jacksonville at the time. They really focused him on the offense, and he was super productive. So, you know, you could have that career revival type of situation with Kyle Pitts, but I definitely understand your hesitancy on that as well.
I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but I did want to talk about these free agent running backs.
Yeah, let's see.
A little bit, because there are a few that, like, okay, say we got like 4 running backs. One of them needs to be a veteran, like has played more than like 2 years. 3 years in the
Mhm.
NFL. I've always been a Ty Johnson fan. And I think he would be a really good veteran back to bring in here. I would love that. Now, in terms of like just raw explosiveness, I don't know what he's going to look like kind of after these injuries. I do wonder if San Francisco, similar to where we've been at prior to Sean Payton, they have some sort of training issue because their guys are just hurt all the time. Like their strength and conditioning, nutrition, it just needs to change.
Mhm.
But Elijah Mitchell, man, like I think he's got more juice than anybody on our team right now in the running back position, and you could probably get him for cheap. Of course, we need to draft a running back within the first 3 rounds. That's how I
No
feel
doubt.
about it. Or at least get a guy that is a first 3 round talent that maybe falls into the early 4th. But those would be a couple guys that I would be really interested in bringing in at like a bargain price.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. I mean, Ty Johnson, after the game, Josh Allen said Ty Johnson's the best third down back in football. He loves him. He seems really beloved. I don't know if Buffalo would necessarily let him go, but he was really intriguing to me. Elijah Mitchell was too, but just as, the same way that San Francisco has like a training nutrition problem, they can make anybody look good when it comes to running the football. Actually, speaking of Kyle Shanahan, I met him when I was in Vegas over the weekend. That was pretty cool.
No way.
He walked by. I said, really nice guy. He said hi. Well, he didn't say, I wish I was like, you think he knew my channel, but obviously he didn't know the channel, but no, he was a really cool guy. That was pretty random, but Elijah Mitchell is definitely somebody that was intriguing for me. And, when I look at that list, very underwhelming list, but crazily enough, I feel like the guy on the list that would fit what Sean Payton would want out of his running backs is Rico Dowdle, especially with kind of what he's shown. Now he's definitely, he's not a solution. He's not somebody that you make like as your, RB1, but he showed that he can be a pretty decent runner and a good catcher out of the backfield at times for Dallas when they didn't really have anything. So I wouldn't necessarily be a fan of that, but I just kind of try to look at that in the view of like, I can see Sean Payton being intrigued by somebody like him. Anybody stick out to you, Jeremy? You look like you're angry looking at the list.
Oh no, I was looking at PFF's top 100 of running backs just to refresh my memory on who's coming out. The one that hurt today is Nicholas Singleton from Penn State decided to go back to school.
What?
And I was like, oh,
why?
I don't know. Because Penn State is where you want to be, apparently. Yeah, that one was tough because he was one of those guys that I was really intrigued by. Yeah.
Give me some Judkins, man. I like that kid. I was texting you guys in the group chat. Quinshon Judkins look like he's going to be a problem in the NFL. I like his style a lot. Here's
the list. They have Jeanty at 5. This is overall rank, not just rank by position, but they have Jeanty at 5 overall. Mm-hmm. Amarian Hampton at 24 from North Carolina. Cam Scatteraboo at 48 from Arizona State. Dylan Sampson, 53 from Tennessee. Caleb Johnson, 59 from Iowa. Trayvon Henderson, 76 from Ohio State. Devin Neal, 85 from Kansas. Quinshon Judkins, 87 Ohio State, which would be the back of the 3rd round.
So they have Henderson over Judkins, huh?
Yeah.
He looked good. They both look good. But yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. I have Henderson over Judkins too, but I'd be happy with either of them.
And then just like rounding out the top 100, RJ Harvey from Central Florida, 94, and DJ Giddens from Kansas State, 99. And then you have
They don't have Dylan Sampson in the top 100?
They have no, I said Dylan. Didn't I say Dylan Sampson? Yeah, Dylan Sampson is 53 from Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Did you notice right when you said Devin Neal, it looked like somebody stuck a fork in David's heart. He just thought about that Kansas game. He was like, oh my God. It looked like it brought back a lot of memories for him. Sorry about that.
I don't see why. I don't agree with him being higher than some of those guys, but I'll dive into it. We'll see.
Yeah. PFF's always weird. Like I this isn't gospel by any stretch, but it's just an interesting like the way they have it ranked. So after that, it's Jarquez Hunter, Kalal Mullings, Damian
Rutgers.
no, from Michigan, Kalal Mullings. Damian Martinez, Trevor Etienne, Kyle.
Where they got Tootin?
Tootin is 144, Virginia Tech. Yeah, 144. And then
Jordan
Jordan James, 148. Jordan James, another guy who played with Bo at 148, would be somebody that could maybe, if you, as like your third back, I could see that. But
it seems like it's a deep class. I mean, overall,
it's a deep class.
It's a deep class. I feel like this is a really good draft class for teams that need running backs. And a lot of these guys are good in, catching the ball too, which I know is going to be huge. But it kind of leads me to thinking, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a segue to this. I feel like Sean Payton took a lot of heat this season, and in some cases, I think rightfully so, for like his play calling and all of that. But how much of it do you think is just like the lack of execution by the players and being able to get into a rhythm? Because I think of myself as a play caller, it's so hard to like call the right plays when you're calling 3 and then it's a 3 and out, right? And then trying to like get back into the flow. Whereas when the offense starts to get first downs and get moving, you could really just, call on that. So I'm just curious that, what you guys thought about that overall.
I think a lot of it is that, because even that play, remember me and Dave were talking about it yesterday, but that play where we were finally driving the ball at the end of in the third quarter or whatever it was, and we went for it on fourth down, and we did that rollout play action and we threw it. I don't remember, was it to Mims? I don't know who it was to, or the running back, and he got pushed out early, and Sean was hot at Franklin on the sideline. And I was like, what the heck? Going back and rewatching that, Franklin's supposed to rub that guy, completely doesn't, and that's why he gets pushed out. But it would have been wide open, easy first down if he just does his job. So those are the little things like you're talking about, where I feel like Sean is like, I'm going to call this play, it's going to be open, and then the execution let it down. So it's tough when you have so many young guys all trying to, like, it's kind of like, I got to keep this small-ish, and we got to figure out what we do well. We didn't feel like we had like a bread and butter. Cortland had the digs, I guess, and we did the quick screen game a lot. But I mean, we didn't have something that we could just rely on, like, okay, we got to move the chains, let's do this. So it's easy to criticize the play calling when stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because some games it was like, oh my gosh, it's working to perfection, and he's calling a perfect game. And then there's some games that are just like, oh my gosh, nothing seems to be working. Yeah. And that seems to me like a youth execution thing. It's just the ups and downs. You don't have guys who are professionals of like, I've seen it all before, I know exactly what to do in every single situation, and I'm going to execute it. So I think those things will improve. Also, I mean, the rookie quarterback, Bo, missed a couple things yesterday, just where it's like he's supposed to go there. It was there, but because he had pressure or because of whatever, he got off it too early. And, those are things that are going to grow. But I think Sean proved this season that any of those people who are out there is basically saying like, oh, has the game passed him by and has this and that. It's like, no, he completely changed the culture of a franchise, and he had never had to deal with a rookie quarterback. Like, that's the other thing, is we just go, oh, well, he's great with quarterbacks, so just draft the quarterback and you'll figure it out. It's like, yeah, but he got Drew Brees like 6 years in Drew Brees. So it's totally, totally different than dealing with somebody who's never seen stuff in live bullets before. So I think that for the most part, I don't really have a lot of complaints other than like just slight nitpicks. Like, stop playing Javonte. run the ball. But that's just the way the hand was dealt this year. And I felt like for having the hand that we had, he played it as pretty much as good as he could. I really do. It'll be interesting to see once you have talent. How many times did Elway go, oh, we're quarterback away, so we're going to go with Flacco, or we're going to go with Case Keenum, or we're going to go with this, because he felt like we had all these other parts ready to go. And then it turned out maybe Jerry Jeudy wasn't the right guy, or KJ Hamler, or all these people that we just in our heads thought they were ready to go, and it was just going to be able to get the right quarterback to feed them, and then it's going to be off to the races. Well, that wasn't the case. That proved not to be the case. So once we have more talent, we're really going to see what Sean Payton can cook up.
What about you, David?
Or not.
I'm sorry. I forgot the question.
It's okay. No, it was just about Sean Payton's play calling overall. Like,
Sean Payton's play calling. Here's the thing. We talked a lot about it because Russ obviously struggled with it. And Bo Nix was a rookie, but I don't think we need to talk about it anymore. Quarterbacks and coordinators on all teams, or a handful of teams every year, they can struggle getting in the play calls at the right time or on time. It's just something that you deal with, but it shouldn't put any added stress on any of the position players. Again, the information is so heavy on the quarterback to make everybody else's life a little bit easier. So I think that's an overblown talking point at this point.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And I think with a play caller like Sean and a lot of the really elite ones, you're calling plays a lot of the times to set up something else. And if you don't get into the opportunity to be able to do it, it's like a wasted play. And then it just kind of goes, it goes out the window at that point. So, it's one of those where you can say, well, don't call those kinds of plays. It's like every play caller does it. It only gets shined or emphasized when it's not going good overall. So I would totally agree. But
I was gonna say, I think Sean Payton, as long as the offseason goes somewhat according to plan, I think Sean Payton's play calling will be less criticized next year, just because you'll always look better when you have a running game to build things off of. Exactly. That's just basic football.
No doubt about it. And I just hope, I feel like Sean Payton has this weird thing with not wanting to play rookie running backs, or I know it used to be quarterbacks, but in general, he still has a thing about playing rookie players as much as vets. And that's why I guess I worry, but I really do believe that there's a higher chance that we're going to address the running back position in free agency, whether it's free agents or a trade, rather than just, hey, we're going to draft this back in the draft and he's going to be our solution.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll see there. But
what about Dobbins?
I like Dobbins personally.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good with JK. I mean, he looks good, but
you get him for 10 games a year.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like I'm so sick of the past, 8-year Broncos where we try to just Band-Aid everything. And I feel like at the running back position, you can. But it's like, if it was, Dobbins, and then there was another guy that was like a clear plan, like one of those backs you had mentioned in the draft, then sure, he could be really good in that position.
That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, he doesn't really make me all that pumped. Say it again?
I was just gonna say, yeah, exactly. Like what you're saying is I wouldn't say, oh, we got Dobbins, we're good. It's Dobbins and the rookie to learn from.
Yeah,
the vet.
I still love Travis Etienne. The idea of that. I know we'd have to trade for him, but I absolutely love. That's a 3-down back. You plug in, you're ready to go. Bye Javonte, Jaleel, whatever. If you want to keep him as a backup, that's fine. Audric Estime can be the goal line or a guy that kind of spells him when he's hurt, and that's it. Or when he's tired, and roll with that. That's a solution that I feel like makes sense in top down from what I think Sean Payton would love to do, from how this offense would work, the fact that he's still young, but he's a vet. So I think they're going to be really interested in him. It's just going to be a matter of what's Jacksonville going to do.
Yeah, who are they going to hire?
Yeah, I think they'd be stupid to not look into trading him. I mean, they got Tank Bigsby. They have a lot of holes. They're going to have to eventually pay Travis Etienne anyways.
Yeah. Are y'all a fan of Najee Harris? Paul brought him up in the chat.
I don't know. I feel like Najee is good. He's probably like at one point I felt like he was like really overrated, and then I felt like everybody kind of forgot about him, and now he's a little bit underrated.
Like he was good last year.
Yeah.
Like fantasy wise, I remember like he surprised a lot of people. I'm not sure how he did this year.
I don't mind Najee. I just don't know how much a guy like Sean, if he fits the Sean Payton mold per se. I don't really know how he is as a pass catcher, I guess, because they have Jalen Warren to do all that. But I'd be open to that for sure.
Well, isn't Jalen Warren a free agent too?
I thought he was. He's actually a restricted free agent, so they could technically tender him.
Bummer.
Yeah, and they probably will. Because he's a good player, man. I like that kid a lot.
Yeah. He's got the juice. I think I'd rather have Jalen Warren over Najee Harris. But again, I'd rather have both of those guys than most of our running backs, I think.
Yeah.
I still want to see what Estime can do, man. Again, it was such a bummer to see him inactive, but yeah, I just still think he can be a good complementary piece to this offense.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I agree. I think it's going to be this season is going to be one of those things. Like I like Jaleel a lot. I think he's a good runner, and I'm intrigued by Estime. But it might be one of those off seasons where we just do a complete overhaul and just say everybody's gone and we're starting fresh.
Yeah.
Potentially, I'm not saying I'm an advocate of that, but I feel like, because you don't want to just hold out hope and then be in the same position again next year. So it's kind of I feel like that's where it gets a little bit tricky, but.
I'd be fine with that if they do it in a way of like, we're going to bring in a bunch of guys and then let it battle out. And if it ends up being that, that's fine. I wouldn't go into it being like, we're clearing out Jaleel and Audric.
For sure. And I guess that's what I mean by that. Like I can see them bringing in a veteran running back and then also drafting a running back in like the second or third round.
Yeah.
And then essentially you're like, okay, you're going to have to get rid of, Jaleel, maybe even Estime. Javonte we know is gone. Maybe, Blake Watson or Tyler Bidet on the back end of the roster too. Like you already know that going in, but that's a possibility. But yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be a, really crowded room and just let these guys kind of battle it out that way.
What do you guys think of this person's really intriguing, but like I could see people being either super high or super like not into it. Cam Scatterbo.
Go ahead, David. College is more. You probably watch a lot more Cam Scatterbo than me, but
yeah, I think he's more elusive than people give him credit for. So I would be a fan, man. I would. I think he's probably still more of a power runner than a zone guy. So, but I think he could do both. But again, if we're wanting to get a guy that can run that outside zone and get to that corner super quick, I don't know if that's him. But I think his vision, he's got natural feel, I feel like, for the position, which, again, with Javonte, that was like his biggest thing. So, like, it really sticks out when you watch him, just seeing, it was kind of like James Cook, yesterday. It's like the vision, being able to find those little crevices, when to hesitate, and, yes, he can run through guys, but he can also make guys miss. He can break ankles. He can juke a guy out of their socks in a phone booth. That's how I feel about it. And he's a true threat in the passing game as well. Like I've wondered on this team, similar to CU this year, do we have a guy that can just run a Texas route?
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
You would think Jaleel could, right? And it's funny because I know for a fact the guy that can run that route the best is, was inactive, and that's Blake Watson because he did it a lot in college, and then being obviously a former receiver. But we didn't utilize him. But Scatterbo, man, the only thing I would really be intrigued by, I guess, for me with Scatterbo, I haven't looked into him enough. Maybe I just have like the white running back bias, but having a team with a starting white corner and a white running back,
let's keep it
just
going.
call us the Denver OJs because we got the white Broncos, and I love it, bro. I would kind of be all for it. We would start a new era.
We need to get a white wide receiver then next after that.
Well, we need
Yeah.
to right our wrong with not going up and getting Christian McCaffrey years ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I've watched him, I'm just like, I always have a soft spot in my heart for someone who has really good vision. It makes up for so much as far as speed. Terrell Davis is like the ultimate vision running back who didn't have breakaway speed, but like knew how to set people up for like jukes. He didn't have to do a million different like shakes to get somebody to just miss because of the power and the vision that he had. So when I watch him, I'm just like, oh man, I don't care if he's white, whatever. It's gonna be interesting to see what he runs in the combine, if he runs, or at his pro day. Because if he puts up a good number, like I don't really see how people. There's not a lot of negatives. The guy can catch, the guy can run, the guy can break tackles, the guy, and the vision is just, that was the thing that surprised me the most, is his vision is just like elite, I think.
Yeah. I got a question. Like, it's been kind of tough for me to evaluate Jeanty. Kind of playing at Boise State, whatever. But I mean, you can't ignore like his yards after contact and stuff like that. But do you think he's like a Saquon level player, like a Saquon level running back? I think like if he truly is that type of running back, then yeah, like you draft him if he falls. But
You think he'll fall though? And what
I'm
do you mean
scared.
by,
I'm scared
far
he
up
might
would you
turn
go?
out. I want to trade up for a running back. I know that sounds crazy. Like
I agree with you 100%.
I'm just not going to do it. But I don't know. I'm just a little worried that he might be more Najee Harris than Derrick Henry. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just a little worried.
You better be sure if you're trading, and what you'd have to trade up, like the PFF.
We just can't miss first round picks.
Yeah, he's listed at 5, which obviously he's not probably going to go top 5. But like, if you're trading up to like 15 to get him, and you're 20, okay, I'm with you. But if you're trading into the top 10 to try to draft a running back who, in a deep running back class, you better be sure. You better be sure he's Saquon. And Saquon wasn't
like
Saquon.
Gibbs. It might even be Jameer, man. I feel like Jameer Gibbs is. I mean, given where he is in his, NFL career, he's even more impressive than where Saquon was, and he was a high pick. I mean, that guy is unbelievable.
Yes.
But I mean, if this town would go absolutely crazy if somehow you do get Jeanty to go with Bo Nix, and now you're just like, okay, here we go. I mean, it would be very, very intriguing to see those two. I mean, are you guys worried at all that he's 5'9"? Is that?
I don't like it, but it's not a.
Really?
I mean, I would prefer probably like 5'11" or even 6 foot. Like I just personally like bigger running backs, but with how built he is, I think his base is the most important thing. But it does. I don't like that he's like 5'9". Like I don't. That's probably like the only thing I don't like about him.
That's interesting. I actually kind of feel the opposite. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like a 5'9" might be like the ideal running back height.
Yeah, so
for me.
It can be a little tough to tackle, being a little shorter.
Well, yeah, I just feel like from a balance standpoint, and what is it? But he's like 225, right? So he's a freaking tank.
Yeah,
running and he's quick.
He's listed at.
215, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily have too much of an issue with that, but I feel like this man. You look at a lot of the last few backs that have been taken super high. And yeah, you can look at Saquon and be like, it really worked. It didn't really work out for the Giants, right? It worked out when he got a second contract. Bijan's been really, really good, obviously, but I still think, given where he was drafted, there's still maybe a little bit more there that he can show. Jameer Gibbs was a stud, but it's hard, man. It's hard when you're a running back at a position that's so susceptible to getting injured.
Yeah.
As well, you really need to show up and show out. So I'm kind of right there with you, David. Like first round. Taking a running back in the first round is always something I'm a little bit hesitant about.
Yeah.
And especially trading up or a top 15 pick.
Yeah. And Derrick Henry wasn't even a first round pick. Like, yeah. And with tight end, I mean, especially in this draft, like definitely you can get some guys like on day 3, that I think should be good, deeper than normal, but still like the high end, on what you can get. I just feel like Tyler Warren's a perfect fit for this offense.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how we were feeling about Bo Nix prior to the draft. I'm starting to get like those same feelings with Tyler Warren about how, like, he just might mean more to this team than other potential landing spots.
And I think a lot of rookie tight ends lately that have been really successful, right? You see with Brock Bowers, Sam Laporta. It used to be like, oh, rookie tight ends take a few years to get going, but that hasn't been the case lately. And so I think now it's like, dude, you see an alpha out there that can help you, go out and get him. I'm all aboard the Tyler Warren train, all aboard for sure.
Yeah.
But
he seems like a Sean Payton guy.
He does in a lot of different ways. But can't believe it's been over an hour and a half. I appreciate everybody tuning in. You guys have been awesome. I definitely wanted to wrap it up here and kind of get a little bit of your final thoughts. And I'll leave you guys with this. There was a little bit of an altercation at the end of the game on Sunday. I don't know if you guys saw it, between like Vance Joseph and Sean Payton. And so if Vance Joseph doesn't get a head coaching job anywhere, do you think that there's still a chance that they part ways with Vance Joseph?
I'd be really, really surprised. Really, really surprised. I do think that Sean Payton likes Jim Leonard a lot. So I'm not going to say it's – see, my dog agrees. I don't think that – I mean, I could see it happening, but it's not probable. Vance had a really good season. The defense greatly overperformed. We set the franchise record in sacks. Like, there's a lot to be positive about. I understand why you get heated in the moment of being like, dude, stop the run. Like, do whatever you need to do. Like, figure out these guys are running it down your throat. But if you're not going to fire Vance Joseph after giving up 70 to Miami, you're not going to let him take you to the playoffs and then be like, now see ya. I just don't see that.
Let's see what he can do in a third year. Big fan of continuity.
I agree 100%. I guess I heard like little birdies, right? Like D-Mac was saying. D-Mac had said that he's heard some rumblings, and there was a few others that echoed the same sentiments. That
I'm sure James Merrillat's all about it. James
Merrillat. Don't get me started with him. But I've heard that like it's a possibility, but I tend to agree. I think once the dust settles and the emotions get out of it and they kind of reevaluate the season, it would be foolish for Sean Payton to get rid of Vance.
I mean, let's see what we can do with more talent. We didn't even talk about bringing in the defensive players that we can bring in really much. Maybe we do that on another episode, because this was about building around Bo Nix. But another offseason of adding talent to this defense. I think it's going to be fantastic next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I definitely want to see VJ stay. And I just love him as a person. He just seems like a great dude. But yeah, Jeremy, David, thank you guys, man. This has always been a blast. Super excited about this offseason. I'm sure there's a lot of great things to come. And David, if you want to tell the listeners, man, what you got cooking up? Because I know you're always cooking up some gems. So what you got?
Yeah. Broncos content pretty much every day, and going to be handling a lot of NFL draft stuff. So prospect, like individual prospect breakdowns, all that sorts of stuff. It will be coming. Mock drafts, all that fun stuff. So yeah, if you're just as excited for the off season as I am, be sure to tune in, hit that bell for notifications when I post.
Definitely do it. And Jeremy, I'd love to see. I'm looking forward to getting your draft analysis on stuff too, because that's when we had originally met. That's what we were talking about when we were first videos we were making, and you were spot on a lot of the things that you were saying. So looking forward to that. But appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. I'm very much looking forward to I already did my first mock draft, so I'm looking forward to this offseason, man. And we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks again, everybody.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos, baby.